Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. My name's Chris Fletcher and I'm your host. Tech on Toast exists to connect hospitality to technology. Search for your best problem-solving tech on our marketplace, listen to both operators and tech experts on our podcast, or just meet up with the brilliant people who are helping innovate the hospitality industry as we enter a new era. Welcome to Tech on Toast. The Tech on Toast podcast is brought today by Point One. Point One offers the complete EPOS system for your hospitality business. From mobile order and pay and self-serve kiosks to restaurant and kitchen management, Point One has the solution. Head over to their website today to find out more and get in touch with their experienced team. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast. And this week, I'm very fortunate to meet a well-travelled man who's come to meet us today. Lawrence Pelletier, Global Sales and Marketing Director at Redcat. I got that right?
That's pretty good.
And I must say, just before we get into anything, that Lawrence has just showed me that his surname has an E in it that doesn't exist.
It's a French thing. It's not my fault. It's French-Canadian.
We had Nico on the last episode. We'll blame him.
Exactly. Always blame the French.
Yeah. Oh, God, let's not get into that too early. So, look, before we get into anything, firstly, welcome to Brewdog, our beautiful studio down here.
It is lovely.
And thank you very much to Brewdog for hosting us as usual. They are lovely people. I'm here, I think, 4 times a week. It's becoming a bit of an obsession.
It's a fantastic location.
It is. It's a big venue. Have you got venues like this size over in Oz, or...?
We do, but I reckon this is a bit unique. It's a lovely place. It's a hidden gem in Waterloo here. We wouldn't know it was here.
No, you would. Well, they're going to knock down, and we shouldn't get. They're going to knock down all the front buildings over there. So eventually, you will just see Brewdog when you walk up, which will be.
Because it is. If you haven't been here, it's definitely the place to hang out when you're near.
Love that. There you go. Free plug Brewdog. There you go. Not that you need it. Right. So, Lawrence, tell us about you. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and tell us all about Redcat.
A little bit. I'll just explain my accent first because I think that's important. So, Aussie is the next Aussie. So that means I grew up in Canada and have lived in Australia for about 30 years. Hence the slightly polluted accent that I carry around with me and I have to explain to everybody.
I was floating between American and Canadian, and I just didn't want to offend you, so I just didn't say anything.
It's a tough one. So, yeah, I'm used to that. What else? What else would I tell you? So I've been lived in Australia about 30 years. Had a background in retail, so supermarkets. My family was owned supermarkets and grew up in that side. So very operations focused, I would probably say. And then probably in the last, starting to show my age because I know nobody can see me, but over in the last probably 15 plus years was much more about hospital and hospitality, and shifted that. Probably that operational focus, but then into technology and brought that kind of with me. So lots of background around technology and operations.
And technology, yeah. I mean, it's been such a. We talk about it every week on the podcast, but it's been such a game changer. And we were just talking briefly there about keeping people in the industry and all this kind of stuff. And I was saying how when I was doing 60 hours a week back in my day, nobody really knew because there was no tech. Yeah. Now everybody knows.
Now we all know. Yeah. Now it comes out in a report and everybody looks at it and goes, "What the heck is going on here?" So,
yeah, it's true, and it's a tough time, I think, for the industry everywhere. How just out of interest, how is it in Australia? How is business?
Yeah, remarkably similar to here in a lot of ways. A lot of parallelisms. Things like you find that typically our customers struggle to get just to get staff.
Yeah.
With COVID, Melbourne was the most. We did win the prize for the most lockdown city in the world.
Do you know what, though?
I am from Melbourne.
I'm from Caerphilly. Well, not from... I live in Caerphilly in Wales, and that local council kept us... I don't know what we did wrong, but we were locked down for a long time. So, Melbourne, check out Caerphilly, because I reckon we're a close second.
Nice. Well, it wasn't something we were super proud of. And at the time, we all just, conformed. But it was interesting, near the end, there was just mass civil disobedience. And everybody said, bugger that, I am not staying home for any reason.
I remember that, because they were physically going door to door, weren't they, trying to keep you in?
Well, we had curfews and the whole deal. It was very extreme, right? And anyway, since that, what happened in hospitality, though, is that it wasn't really one of the protected industries in the sense that if you were in supermarkets or in other industries, you could keep working. And for a while there was financial support, right? But eventually that's going to end. Yeah. And then it turned out that if it was difficult for restaurants and cafes and things to reopen. So there was a big trend for people to shift into other industries. And we saw that across and in lots of different industries, lots of things happen now. Things like all the pilots taking early retirement, all that sort of stuff. So in hospitality specifically, it got to the point where, very difficult to hire somebody. I just need somebody to to come and serve or do whatever.
We used to joke about arms and legs, right? Back in the day
Yeah.
when someone say, "Who do you need?" I just need someone with arms and legs. But I think that we might be back there again.
Well, it's quite common, and it's getting better and better. But it's quite common to go to a restaurant, and it might be stupidly busy, and it has an upstairs, but the upstairs is closed, and it'll be because either they don't have the kitchen staff or they don't have the serving staff.
It's
or
shocking,
both.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And as I bore everyone every week, I've been doing that all my life, and I found most of my restaurants, I think someone hated me, had 2 floors on pretty much everywhere I worked.
Yeah.
And you always had that debate in your own head: do I open upstairs today? Is it worth it? Can I do it? Can I afford not to? Kind of thing. So I think they're up against it. Yeah, but tech is helping that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So there's well, I think it's a bit of a love-hate relationship sometimes, right? Because there's definitely a lot that tech can do to give people a hand, right? And that can be anything from a rostering solution that helps you to find staff or help or find staff when somebody can't make it if they're sick or something's going on. But from our world, it's things like kiosks, which love them or hate them, if you like that. They fundamentally reduce the amount of labor required to take an order, right? Yeah. So you can do it on there. You can do it on your phone now, so you can do an online order or like while I'm standing in the shop as an example, or I can use a QR code to drive me to use my phone basically as a kiosk. So there's this kiosk concept, either whether it's on your phone or a big physical kiosk. Those sorts of things start to save labor, right?
Yeah.
And that fundamentally that allows you to run your shop with fewer people.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I said it's a bit of a love-hate.
I was going to ask.
I think one of the things that's coming, or not, that's here, I think, is this different view of tech. And what I mean by that is there was a point where we all had to use, you couldn't go into a shop, for example. And then it was like, well, you must use a QR code because, God forbid you touch a physical menu. I don't know. That was, you just explode if you touch one, yes. Anyway, but we went through that whole cycle, right? Of like, okay, I'm going to tell you how you have to interact with us. And if you think about it, if you go back a few steps, pre-COVID, we used to do the same thing, but we used to say, the way you have to order is you have to walk up to me and tell me what you want.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm going to put you under pressure and you can order. So I kind of think in the new world, and I developed this thinking partly from talking to my daughter. So I can't say her name or anything because she'll freak out and get angry with me. But so she's 21.
Right.
And we're talking about, well, how do you guys go, what's it like for you guys when you go out to a shop?
It's great. You've got built-in focus groups.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I said, tell me a bit about it. And she said, well, Dad, the way we work is we want to go to like a place to eat that's casual. And what she wants with her friend group, is they want to have, in a perfect world, QR code ordering, and that's specifically so they don't have to talk to other humans, right? So QR code ordering, they don't have any anxiety of making an order or trying to hurry or think of they can just do it at their own pace with no other humans. Yeah. And then it also, for them, it allows them to pay their bills individually, so they don't have to fight or discuss how they split the bill. They just all casually sit, do their orders, off they go. And in her simple world, I said, well, okay, what about like the timing of the orders? She goes, well, it's a bit of a snooze you lose. Like if I've got a friend who's too dumb to put his order in and they're 5 minutes late, they'll probably get their food 5 minutes later. She said, I don't really care.
I think that's gone. And so I'm using this place as an example, and I'm not shouting about the tech that's in here or anything, because it's, QR ordering. The process is the same, right? Pretty much. Yeah. So, and we sit here quite a lot, have meetings, and I was with Kieran, my business partner, the other day. And we were here really early, like 7 in the morning, when it was 7:30 it first opens or something. So they were obviously busy setting up and getting ready. So we just flashed the QR code, just because we can. Yeah. And I think it's like a hybrid, almost. Is that the right word for it? Hybrid ordering, where we kind of like I like table service. I like to chat to the waiter, but also I'm definitely a time now where I just want to do what I want. And that's thanks to the pandemic bringing the QR code back, as it would be. He did. It's like the QR code made a comeback, and I think it will stay in that form. I think it is interesting to your generation you're discussing. Well,
that's kind of where I was going, is that I think that in our new world, so if you go back to, as I said, where we used to force people to order in a certain way, and then we forced them to order by QR codes, and we've kind of moved through. I think we're at a place now where what's going to become important is you offering the way, basically a methodology for me to order that I'm happy with. Yeah. So now it's back to choice, right? Driven by the consumer.
The power is back with us.
Yeah. Right? So now it's like going, okay, well, so, my daughter would prefer a QR code, but I want to talk to a human. I like hospitality. I like chatting with the person who's serving. I like, maybe asking a couple questions about some of the food, whatever it is. I enjoy that aspect. But even I will say sometimes, like if I'm in a pub or something and it's time for the third round of drinks and it's a busy pub, sometimes it's really cool to just go, you know what, we can order another round on an app.
No one's
and
going
somebody
to the
will
bar.
just show up. It's fantastic. And we don't have to figure out how we pay, and it just all happens, right? So I think it's this mix, and that could include a kiosk, or it could, and by that, so the nice thing is you, in a perfect world, you let people do the most comfortable thing. We were just in a coffee shop before I came and saw you, and interesting, it's very driven by kiosks. I won't mention names, right? But very driven by kiosks. The gentleman I walked in with, though, was much more comfortable dealing with humans. Right?
Yeah.
He said, oh, yeah, whatever. Just walked straight over to make an order. So he had to wait for a minute until they gave him his attention. And when they gave him his attention, they said, could you go use a kiosk, please? And I thought, that's a fail. That's not great. But
that-
right?
and
he
that-
was a bit grumpy. He was like, oh, whatever,
And that is the bloody annoying thing, isn't it? That actually tech is an enabler. It is there to support what you want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's about how you use it in an operational sense that then connects, deals with whether it was Mark or deals with whoever it is, right? To be able to give them their way of service, like we just talked about, give them their chance to do. And I have to segue out of this into Redcat, because obviously you're here to talk about Redcat.
Sure.
And I'm guessing...
if we have to.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, you've come all the way from Australia. We better do it. It wasn't just for me, I might add, but I'll take it. And Redcat, I presume, is helping solve your product or your features can help solve these problems.
Yeah, so what we do, we've been around a long time. So a couple things that are really important. Company's been around over 25 years.
Wow.
Which for a tech company is very old, right? But we have reinvented ourselves periodically through that time.
Yeah.
So I like to think that we've been very innovative, and we continue to be there. So, and again, without going too crazy about it, things like, all of our stuff's up in AWS, and they've written nice white papers on our approach and all sorts, like all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So we can sit and have tech talk with if we get the tech boys together, they sit and have a great time and put stuff on whiteboards. That's really exciting. It's a nice tech stack, right?
Yeah.
Been around a long time. About 5 or 6 years ago, myself and 3 of the other guys actually did a management buyout. And since then, we've actually run it very much as a startup in a lot of ways. So we've invested everything back into it. We've moved it from, say, 30. I think we had about 30 staff pre-COVID. We're now over 85, so quite significant.
Oh, wow. I get chest pains about my payroll.
Payroll's not a good day for me. I mean, I love that everybody.
It's so different when you're pressing it for yourself, isn't it? When you're pressing that pay button,
but
you're questioning, did he really do that?
when you're the person going, wow, that's a big number. I agree.
Yeah.
But it's good for the economy, I guess. So we've put a lot into building and building it up. All of our people are based in Australia or in the UK, so we're very much in those two economies, if you like, which is important for things like support, because everybody's in, I guess, an economy that's similar, right? So they can understand what you're doing and what's going on.
There's not really a language barrier, is there?
No language barriers, although Aussies are from every country known to man. But yes, no language barrier, lots of languages spoken. But also they can relate to what's going on. So they're not in a third world country or something. They're trying to understand, what it means to be in a restaurant or in a cafe or whatever it is. And what we do, I guess, if you think about that tenure, like how old the company is. So what I like about that means is that our solutions have a lot of depth. So we've been doing this for a long time. We've got way more than 4,000 different sites installed. We've got millions of people using our loyalty engine, which we can talk about a bit. We've got just so many different customers using it in so many ways. What I like is the depth. So
so you can access it. It doesn't really matter where you are on your tech journey.
Nah,
put my fingers in the air.
Exactly.
But you can access the product at different points, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's tried and tested. So we like to be innovative, but we are taking people down a safe, secure path of stuff that, that's very solid, which is nice.
And I find it interesting because obviously in the pandemic, a lot of tech firms shot up, right? A lot of people raised money quickly. It seemed to be a good time to go and get some cash. And some consolidation is happening now, right? So there's and I think having that legacy that you guys have, that 25 years, whilst it's funny, isn't it? Because people will say, "Oh, old tech, you mean?" No.
Yeah, so we're not those guys.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it? It's because you're constant tech. Anyone who's worked within tech, you're constantly iterating. You have to because of the nature of the beast. Yes. So 25 years worth of iteration is totally different, right?
Yeah, and it's been a really interesting journey, and we do still have. I will just do a shout out to Sue. So Sue is our employee number 1.
Wow. Still there?
So, when Pepe started the company, so he's our founder, he's one of my partners. When he started the company, the first employee, first person he hired was Sue. and she's still with the company.
What does Sue do?
And Sue is now in charge of all of our documentation and making sure that when they build something new, that it's fully documented, internal, external, because she's got the best all-round view, right? And what's fantastic is, to this day, if somebody's talking about like a situation, a customer says, I'd like such and such to happen, you'll always get somebody scratching their chin going, I think we built that. Like, I swear that we used to do something like that.
Sue will know.
Call Sue. So we always call Sue and say, Sue, do you remember this? What's the story? And then she'd say, oh, yeah, you remember what it used to be was blah, blah, blah. It's great. Like, she's like the living encyclopedia.
It's fantastic, isn't it, to have someone. I mean, I worked for Hard Rock for years, and they had a young lady, I'll call her, called Rita Gilligan, who was she's been there 50 years as a waitress, yeah. So she's an MBE now, and she's got she's got all her medals off the Queen and whatnot. But absolutely, I think they still do a day with Rita at the Hard Rock on Park Lane, where you can have an hour and have she is Irish, brilliant, and mad as a hatter. But it's that legacy that she brings, and actually that knowledge that she brings to anybody coming into the company. She was rolled out in front of them, and she's just excellent. And I think for hospitality brands listening, to have those. It doesn't have to be the number one employee, but to have someone stick around for a while makes such a big difference internally as well as externally.
We actually have a wall in our office. We actually have
a wall.
Not a wall. Sorry, we have a plaque on the wall, which actually has all the people with all the long-term employees. Yeah. There's actually quite a few that are the 10+ year employees. It's nice. It makes you feel good, right? Because it tells you.
Well, it means you're doing something right.
Yeah, there's some good things. But what I was going to say, back to what I was trying to say, was. What do we do different, or what do we? If I told you what we've discovered, if you like, and how it applies here, I think that's probably the same. That's kind of what you're asking me. There's this topic that we've been exploring called the fractured tech stack.
Yes, right? I've been watching.
And the fractured tech stack is really interesting. So the story that I would tell, which I would be surprised if most people don't relate to, is somebody opens a shop, right? Let's say it's a burger shop. They go, I'm gonna sell burgers. We always joke, within Redcat, by the way, the going joke is, burgers, that's a good idea. Nobody's done burgers before. But everybody who does burgers tends to be pretty successful. I don't know what it is, but burgers
and chicken, my friend.
It's burgers and chicken.
You can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong. So let's do a burger shop. So you end up with 1, and then you go to 2 and 3 and 4. And as you build and have more of these burger shops, right, it's an interesting and common phenomenon. What'll happen is at some point you'll be going, I need more interfaces with the customer, right? And those interfaces will be, for example, you'll go around and you'll add these different methodologies, right? And as you do that, at some point in that series, you'll also add loyalty of some sort, because everybody says, you know what, I want to have loyalty, and loyalty can be anything from I want gift cards to I want to recognize people, gold, silver, bronze. I want to have people earn points and burn points. I want buy 9 free, get 1. Whatever it is, right? Whatever you want to call it.
Earn and burn points. I like that.
Got to earn and burn them. So all those different things, right? I want to have all those. And what you'll find, though, is inevitably, you'll get into what I call the fractured tech stack. And what that means is this Frankensteinian thing that you've put together, right, doesn't quite work the way you had planned and hoped. So you'll end up with, things like bits of it will work beautifully. I love the way this particular loyalty product works with my point of sale. Oh, it's fantastic. The interface is great. And if you ask the question, well, how does that work with the kiosk? They go, ooh, well, we don't use it on the kiosk.
It's on the roadmap.
It's not the same. And that whole interrelation, which is all the data trying to come into one place, right? And all the orders coming into one place, and trying to get all that to actually functionally work together and to show the consumer a consistent loyalty offer amongst those things, that rarely happens. That is a big problem. And then the second part of this fractured tech stack is actually the management of your menus. Because if you take all the stuff we just talked about, then you add in the delivery providers, right? So you throw in your Uber Eats, your Deliveroos, your Just Eats, maybe your DoorDashes if you're in a different country listening. So if you throw those sorts of things in, and then you say, well, now I need to manage my menu across those things. And in our world, right, the menu is the description of the product, the pricing, the different pricing that you have, the image of the product, the allergens, and even the fact that it's a main menu item, and these are the modifiers for that item, all that stuff, right? So if you look at that and you say, okay, so I've got to do that for every product, I'm going to make a change. Typically, people will have to make that change in more than 10 locations.
Yeah.
right? As they work their way through. And if you just imagine, and if you've never talked to anybody who's done that, that's a lot of spreadsheeting and ticking things off
really
and
is.
double checking. It's a real pain in the ass.
Especially if you serve chips with every dish. My friend runs a restaurant in Cardiff, and he's got chips on every dish. So when he needs to change all the menus for the online menus, he has to go through and eradicate chips on each. And I only know that because he swears about it when he has to do it each time.
Yeah. So again, what we do, like our world is unifying that tech stack, right? So we actually take that entire problem we just explained, and we supply all of those items, right? So we have this full-on platform, this hospitality tech platform. And what that means is that we go in and we do all those, we consider those things all core. So we will supply the point of sale, if you want them, obviously, kiosks, web-based ordering, so whether that's click and collect or delivery, or if it's white label delivery, all your delivery providers integrated in, menu management across everything, apps, all the bits and pieces that you would expect to have as your core. We do those ourselves. And it means that you have control of those things. They interact with each other nicely because, again, our loyalty works everywhere, right? So you now have a unified loyalty platform across all those things. And then we integrate out to third parties that can add some value to that, whether that's a rostering company, whether it's a marketing automation company, whatever it is that's going to add some value to that platform.
And do you know what shocked me? Last week we did a brunch with some people talking about loyalty, actually, and we talked about... they were talking about the fact that loyalty is still very manual in a lot of businesses, and we're not talking about small business. I won't say the names, but there were some big darlings of the high street that people love, and saying how they were still using the cards with the stamps and which is still quite cool, right? There's a place for, I don't know, I kind of you can digitalize it. Obviously now it's in your wallet, an app on your phone or whatever. Yeah. But I was shocked, and so I suppose there's still quite a long journey, would you say, for a lot of operators to go down with loyalty?
Well, yeah, I find that it's interesting. Everybody's in a different place, and everybody has different expectations. You know, like that's why I always, when I'm talking to somebody, I always say, "So, what do you call loyalty? What is it?" Because, as I say, if you're more restaurant-y, then loyalty can just be gift cards.
Yeah,
that's actually loyalty to you, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because you'll do, hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of gift cards, or thousands, and that's. You can use that for marketing and all those good things. And in those scenarios, you probably don't want to earn and burn points because it feels like you're taking a step down, right? You want to keep it
premium.
Keep it premium, exactly. So I think almost everybody there's a journey in loyalty, no matter who they are and what they think they've got. There's always a bit more you can do, right? Yeah. Whether that's changing the way you interact with the customers, defining your user journeys differently, being a bit more proactive, deciding, your core focus, whether it's, actually discounting things or if it's actually just about communicating. We've actually done a bunch of work to add, the concept of levels. So we'll call it bronze, silver, gold for the minute. But there are customers who will look at bronze, silver, gold, and they might change recognition of the consumer, right? So now I can say, you're a gold member. Maybe that's all that's really important.
Time anyone's ever said that to me.
I'm just telling you I love you, right? That's it. You're the gold member. It's all good. You might not have to really give that person a lot of money, or it's actually not necessarily about.
But it's a recognition of my status with you.
It's a value.
My brand. Yeah.
You know what? I fly with Qantas a fair bit, and when my app, when I bring it up, it's platinum, so it comes up in platinum colors, and that's a great.
You think I've earned that actually?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a status symbol, right?
Hours.
Who cares? I've flown too much, right? But it's a really clever way of giving me value without giving me any money. Like it's actually just saying, well, here you go, you're now platinum. Isn't that lovely?
And I think that's probably where everyone got a bit lost. I think when tech did explode, that obviously everyone was thinking, I need to have McDonald's style, or McDonald's, but I'm trying to think the coffee chain style loyalty, where it's all very much reward, and then as you say, what do you call it, earn and burn?
Earn and burn.
Write that one on my gravestone. Earn and burn, and I think that actually loyalty can be really simple. Raving Fans is a great book I read years ago.
Yeah, good book.
And Raving Fans is just about that little magic dust, just that recognition of thank you for your custom. Yeah. It's really not difficult, but we can do it in a really cool way digitally.
Yeah. It is an interesting. There's another company I've heard about, an Australian company, and what they were doing is they were using loyalty to. Actually quite tricky. They were using information where they would look and see if you or I booked, let's say we booked a wedding reception or even just a nice a private dinner with 10 of our friends or whatever it would be. They would keep track of that quietly and use that to, next time you're in the restaurant, to just quietly come and offer you maybe a really nice bottle of wine or whatever it is, but just very subtle, right?
Yeah.
And it was about just saying, hey, we actually do love you. We just wanted to quietly say, thanks for coming.
And I always refer to that, the Cheers mentality, back in the day, for anyone who's old enough to remember Cheers, the TV show, you kind of have that Boston bar where you walk in, your beer slides down the bar into your hand. And I kind of think that's what, we lost our way a little bit maybe, and I don't know, maybe people still are a bit lost on it, but I think that's what I really love about it. So the fact that I know Emily here, I just went to the bar to get you a water, and she's like, hey, Chris, I'll bring it to you.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
That's all I need. I don't need, that's perfect.
Yeah, and that could be as simple as the barista knows what you drink, right?
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Dead simple stuff. And we talked earlier about Australia and the similarities between the two.
Yeah.
I suppose, apart from our love for sport and the fact that we like a beer, what other similarities are there between ourselves and the Aussies? And are you seeing similar behaviours in, I suppose, customers and the way they use your tech?
Yeah, so probably we talked a little bit before about social animals, like about being people wanting to have individual service. So we said, I think that a key thing that I've seen in Australia, and I think it's the same here, that fundamentally people would like to be served in the way that they're the most comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's person to person, whether it's I want to go to a kiosk and not talk to you or whatever it is. I think that there's a demand for convenience, right? And that's around people, and that's sort of the age-old thing, right?
Yeah.
People are busy, and you just want to be able to have the world be a little easier, So you might want to do a click and collect, but maybe I'll do it just before I get on the tube, and then I'll pop up at the station and grab my food, which, by the way, in London's a real challenge because I got to say, the internet availability on the tube is friggin' horrible.
Yeah.
I used to live in Hong Kong. It's beautiful on the trains. It's actually better on the trains than outside. And I must say, for people who don't live in London, the internet in London is not great either. So it is it's an interesting challenge here if you want to enable.
I think you'll have lots of nodding heads. I think it's been a challenge for us constantly.
I find it. It's an intrigue. So if I found one difference, believe it or not, there was a very controversial thing that happened in Australia a while back.
I thought you were about to talk about the cricket.
No, not yet. We'll talk cricket later. But there was this thing called the NBN, the National Broadband Network, and the government, a couple of governments back, said we're going to invest billions of dollars. We're going to build this internet backbone and connect the whole country like the electricity is connected. And I think at the time we all went, probably a good idea. I don't know. It feels like a lot of money. Anyway, I'm really glad we did it because I can see we have generally really good internet. And we have very good cell towers, right? So you actually generally, as a normal consumer in Australia, I would rarely sign into the Wi-Fi in a venue because I don't really need to.
Yeah.
I just don't need to. Whereas here, that is a critical element. You gotta
and that journey's crap as well.
Yeah, and you gotta have good Wi-Fi in your shop, and you have to have a good login journey. You're right, and some of those are horrible. Right? So that becomes an important piece of your tech layer here. Is having good Wi-Fi that people can log into. It's really interesting
actually because no one's ever brought it up, and actually you make a really good point.
Yeah.
And probably because you're traveling, you experience it more. But it is shocking. I mean, the tube is embarrassing. The train from where I come from is you don't have any Wi-Fi.
It's difficult. Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, but what you think about, go back to consumer and what we're talking about very specifically. I arrive in your shop. You say, hey, mate, here's your QR code ordering. And I'm going, well, this is great. I don't have any data, so I can't use the QR code. That's a pain. Okay, I know what I'll do. I'll log into their Wi-Fi. I kid you not, I've been in a couple of places where 5 minutes later, I'm going, geez, I think I've almost got the Wi-Fi going. It's getting close, right?
And you know, and the customer blames you, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This isn't to do with the Wi-Fi supplier.
This is your shop.
Yeah, this is you.
This is you.
The general manager or the waiter in front of you. It's his fault.
Well, you know what you've done though. You've taken away their server.
Yeah.
And you have put this there. So there's no one else to blame. It's a little bit like the cricket. If you don't understand stepping out of the crease, right? It's all the blame is on you. So it's true. You really do have to think through these things and just realize in that sense that these are important components of your offer. And you can't just go, oh, that's a tech thing. It doesn't matter that much. Because It's an absolutely critical bit.
It's the important. It's the connectivity, right?
I know, but again, I think that a lot of operators don't realize. They kind of go, "Well, that's not my fault," or that's. But you got to realize that's as important as you having a good server that's been trained well, because that is your server now.
Yeah.
But weirdly, I can't get to
That's
your
a really
server
good
because
point.
there's a gate holding me away from the server, which is called the internet at this point. So anyway, so that's one thing.
But that's a really nicely broken down point, because actually the fact that the server is the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Or your infrastructure.
It's the step towards it. It's the language, or whatever you want to call it, right? That blocks your service. Anyway, so good to think about. That's one thing that I've noticed that's quite different, though, is this whole concept of the internet being a challenge, if you like, being a real problem. Anyway, other than that, another thing that I have noticed is there is a higher propensity. It's a bigger country, so there's a higher propensity in Australia to drive, right? Yeah. So especially compared to London, say.
Don't do that.
So drive-through tech is actually a bit more important there. Now, so we've done lots of cool stuff with drive-through and multi-lane drive-through, and drive-through is one of those things that sounds simple, and when you start getting into it, it's crazy. So things like preparing an order before somebody's finished ordering it and all sorts of stuff, right? And adding to orders live on the go on all the KDS screens and all those. There's tons and tons of bits, which has been pioneered by McDonald's and stolen by everybody else, right? But it is really, really clever what you can do. Here, I'm interested to see, and from what I understand, it's starting to happen. I think that we'll start to see a bit more drive-through tech start to kick in outside of London. Yeah. Right? Not so much in London, I don't think, because
there's no space here. I know. Why would you drive here? You get punished for driving here anyway.
You can't stop your car anywhere. You can't park anywhere.
You have to pay to do it.
Costs you money to drive. Yes. Costs you money not to drive. Costs you money for everything. Like,
in fact, while we're in London, let's go.
But I reckon that's something that will come as a bit more. I think we'll start to see some more drive-through.
I live in the regions, right? So I live outside of London, and I see traveling around, because I drive a lot more than anyone down here, and I see a lot more of the drive. Just the real estate popping up for now. There's more real estate coming, which obviously leads to the fact that there's traffic for it. And that will then lead to more tech, I imagine. And there's a Taco Bell that I keep seeing every time I open a QSR Jolt, the newsletter. Yep. So Taco Bell is almost like a multi-story car park.
I think we've all seen those photos. I don't know if it's real.
Is it real?
I don't know, but it's a great rendition
Looks
of
amazing.
a potentially real.
If it's not real, make it real.
Tech on Toast is pleased to announce that HRC Hotel, Restaurant and Catering is returning to London on the 25th to the 27th of March 2024 at the XL. Discover game-changing trends, network with industry leaders, and explore cutting-edge solutions that will elevate your business. Mark your calendars for an unforgettable experience at HRC, as this is where the future of hospitality unfolds. Don't miss out. To find out more, check out the website www.hrc.co.uk. Back to the chatting.
That's the one with about four lanes, and the food goes over the top and drops down on little elevator things.
Yeah, it's not real, is it?
I don't know. It's cool. It's cool looking though. I like
Broken my dreams, but that's fine.
It's cool looking.
And we were talking about features before. There's one specific feature we didn't chat about, and that was Google. Tell me a little bit more about that.
There's a very cool thing about to land in the UK. It's called, and I'll say it so that I don't get in trouble from the people at Google, the good people.
I mean, I know they listen weekly.
I know. Well, I think it's automatic.
Right, that's true, yeah. Someone's listening, right?
Yeah, something's listening. So it's called ordering food through Google. So I say that because if you call it Google food ordering, you get your wrist slapped. I've had that done. So ordering food through Google. So this is a pretty interesting bit of tech. It exists in about 5 countries around the world. Right. Came to Australia a couple of years ago, and we did an integration with them. And what it actually, and it's about to land here, so we're just turning our integration live here this week. And what it does is when the consumer does a search. So Google has found that one of the most common searches in Google is X, something near me. So coffee near me.
Yeah.
Food
petrol near me, whatever.
Something near me, right? So they're playing on that, and they're going, okay, well, so if you want any food, when you do like burgers near me, food near me, snacks, whatever it is, what'll happen is in that search, as it comes up, the companies or the restaurants that actually have integrations with this ordering food through Google, what'll happen is in their little listing, there'll be a button that comes up, and the button will say order takeaway, or it'll say order delivery, or both, right? 2 buttons. And what that means is that as the consumer who's Googling, I want coffee near me, I'll see a bunch of different coffee shops, but maybe one or two of them will actually have this button. If I hit the button, it actually brings up an online ordering interface that's done by Google. So it's Google's.
So you're not even going on to...
You don't leave Google, right? You're in Google for the whole experience. And it's not a bad... It's a good generic experience, right? So you're in there and you've got all your products, your images. It's built for food, so you have modifiers and you can add things and I want coffee with sugar and all that sort of good stuff. And as you go through and make your order, it then you do a click and collect. And again, as an option, you can either have click and collect or an order for delivery, and it'll do a white label or a third-party delivery. And you actually can click those and it'll go. Wow. Now, a couple things that are neat about it. One is what that's showing us. So we do more than 100,000 of those a month in Australia. So a reasonable volume, right?
Not bad.
And across different customers. And what it's showing us is a couple things. One is that most of the consumers that use it are generally new to the brand. Right? Because if
golden.
If it's my brand, I'm going to probably type the name, right? I'm
Yeah.
type
If I know,
or something, right?
Yeah.
Costa near me, that's different, right? Whereas this is generally people just looking for something. And the people like me in a different city going, you know what, I'd like some pizza, but I don't know.
30 years ago, this is the guy walking past the window goes, oh, I'm going to go in there.
Conceptually, yeah. So it's a really interesting development, if you like. And I think Google's done a really good job. So what we do, we integrate into that. So when you do, remember we talked about that centralized menu management. Yeah. When you're managing your menu, you literally tick a box and it publishes all your stuff to Google.
So it's like another aggregator, basically. Another
at this point it's some free marketing.
When's it coming?
Google's not charging. Well, we're supposed to go live next week. So I don't know when it's going to show up to the consumer, but I'll find out and I'll come back to you. But I don't know. But it should be any time. Like it's very close.
I think and this is why I think that operators should tune in because there's certain stuff you're never really going to hear about because
who's going to tell you?
Yeah, it's not really.
Well, Google could tell you.
Yeah, Google could if you ask it.
I'll tell you the other thing that I like. So this is my little plug for us that I think is very cool.
You're allowed to plug.
My understanding. Sorry. My understanding, right, is that so in Australia, what happens is when you click one of those things, it comes onto the Redcat online ordering solution, right? So it actually shows you for your brand, obviously it's yours. But what that means is you're coming in through a very cost-effective methodology, right?
Yeah,
so it might cost you, to do an online order, it might cost you, I don't know, 5% or something. Yeah. And if you do a white label order, so we could talk a little bit about Uber Direct, which is showing up here too. We can push it out through an Uber Direct or DoorDash Drive or soon Just Eat Go, right? Yeah. So those are the white label delivery solutions. And you can then do loyalty and all that good stuff, even though it's from Google, right? So that's pretty cool. There's definitely integrations, right? Yeah. And what I mean by that is so we try really hard to have what we call a partnership more than an integration. So we'll work with somebody really closely and say, well, what else can we do to make sure that our APIs are exploiting each other's systems as best we can? Let's make these things tight.
It's sticky, right, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what makes the customer stay. That actually they don't... The best tech is the quiet tech, right? We don't hear from the waiters. You don't hear from the chefs. You don't hear from the managers.
And I'll give you an example of what, something I experienced again just recently in the last couple of days, which is not like that, right? But on the surface looks fantastic. So company, they do coffee. They had a bunch of kiosks. You go up to the kiosk and it says, and it takes your order and everything flows, works really well. But not always. So as a consumer, right, you got to remember, a little bit like we said before. Yeah. This is now your server, right? So this is how I see your company. So in this particular company, I downloaded their app, right, and tried to become a loyalty member, and I got caught in an endless loop of it won't validate my mobile number because it says it's sent too many texts, and I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. And so I go, okay. So there's a button that says contact support. I hit contact support, goes to a dead page. So I'm in an endless loop of you cannot be a loyalty member.
And, right? and also I wonder how many people actually find out about that. As in how many, because if I'm that person, I'd probably just walk away. And I'm probably not going to make it. After support saying 404, I'm probably not going to go any further than that, right?
And you walk away.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It's a bit like a customer in a restaurant who doesn't get served correctly or whatever might happen, and they walk and they don't really say anything, but then 4 years later say, oh, don't go there. I
never go there. Yeah, they do bad things. And we've all done that. We've all been to a place
I think that's the big eye-opener for tech in the UK, because I think that there's one particular tech supplier in the UK that I hear a lot of negative things about constantly.
Yeah.
Who are still doing sales, obviously, and they're still around. But it must catch up with you eventually. I just don't, I can't understand. And it's some of these draconian contracts that keep people in for a bit. SaaS is monthly, obviously, but if you're in something that's a 3-year deal or whatever, then you're sitting there for 3 years, pretty grumpy. You're waiting to have your moment.
we do 30-day contracts for exactly that reason.
And why? I think I know it's not on my question set. This I just want to ask it anyway. But shouldn't everyone be doing that?
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Because you don't trust your tech.
I don't know why you wouldn't. So we do. Our honest belief is that if you no longer want to be our customer, I don't think it's reasonable for me to use a contract to say, well, you must be my customer.
Yeah. I totally agree.
That's weird, right? Like that's like, I don't know, like modern slavery or something. That's a very strange approach to go, I'm sorry, you can't leave.
Yeah.
Because you signed a piece of paper.
It's like the gym.
It's like the gym, but even the gym you can leave if you bother.
You can now. But back in the day, with the same, the gym, you had to pay out your membership. I used to run fitness clubs, as you can tell.
And you used to. I'd noticed.
Thanks. That's the first thing you said to me when you walked in. You're buff. And you used to sign a year's deal to go to the gym,
right.
and we'd make you pay 9 months. If you left at 3 months, 9 months, you have to pay out.
Yeah, that's changed.
Yeah,
but it is an interesting phenomenon. We see it quite often.
Good for you. I think that's great. I think that more and more people should be doing that if you're listening. So please, right, good. And after all of the Australia UK comparisons, what challenges are you coming across? Because obviously you're facing some barriers. You're growing. I think I named this podcast. What did I name it? I had a funny name for it. Where am I? From the Gold Coast to the South Coast. Do you like that?
Yeah, that made me giggle.
How'd you break new ground through product and people? So yeah, it must be hard growing, because you said you're like a startup again almost, that you're coming here and you kind of.
Yeah, well, so interesting. We've had customers here for almost 15 years, right? So,
okay, so that's throwing my title out the window.
I know. No, well, but still. So we've had Boost International. So there's a company in Australia called Retail Zoo. Retail Zoo has 4 brands. One of them is Boost Juice.
Right.
Boost Juice operates in multiple countries, and in any of most of those countries are all using Redcat, whether it's Saudi Arabia, UAE, including the UK. So we've been here for a dozen plus years. But having said that, coming here and setting up an office and getting much more serious is a different thing. So a couple things that we've noticed. This will surprise no one. It's bloody expensive in this country, right? So to all the Aussies thinking about coming over, I got to tell you, things cost
a couple of years.
Well, the things cost about the same, except the number that you're paying is pounds, not pesos, as we call them, right? Because it's almost 2 to 1. So that means everything here is about twice as expensive, with the exception of the trains, which are about, I don't know, 5 to 10 times more expensive. Like the day-to-day costs of operation here are
it's insane.
Very challenging, right? Very, very challenging, especially in London, because London's just takes it up a notch.
Yeah.
Now and then, I just have to learn when I'm here we think in pounds. We do not think in Aussie dollars, because if I convert anything, I wouldn't ever eat or travel. So it is. Shut
the office.
It is a challenge. It is a real challenge, right? And so again, that's
the thing, right? I mean, obviously you see the news, and the UK particularly has dealt really badly with whatever's happened over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's just we're in the middle of it, and I think it's going to be a couple of years at least.
Hopefully, for it to balance out a bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things that's challenging for us is to make sure that you develop an income stream in pounds, so that you're paying your bills in the same currency that you're earning. Yeah. So that's a challenge. So that's the first challenge, right? The other thing I found really interesting is that. From a business culture perspective, remarkably similar. You got to realize too, right? So I've lived in 2 colonies. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about colonies anymore, but I've lived in 2 colonies.
You mentioned slavery in colonies.
Right,
just keep going.
I know. I'm just
you're in the hole.
Digging the hole. But I grew up in Canada. And,
you're fine. You're the friendly people.
So I've lived in a couple of different places where there are a lot of British people, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very both of those countries have a lot of British heritage mixed into them. So that's great. But surprisingly, when I come and work here, what I've realized is from a business culture perspective, it's slightly more formal here. So
I'm so surprised. I mean, I'm not formal, obviously, but I suppose I'm not. Am I surprised? I can't tell.
Well, so Australia is known for being very cash, right?
Yeah.
So it is. And remember, in hospo, you're down a step already, right? So you're in I'm in a casual industry in a casual country.
Yeah.
So I come here, and a couple of things that are just interesting. So generally, if I go to a meeting, the people that are in the meeting will be wearing a shirt with a collar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And generally, we would go to that same meeting with a T-shirt on, like a Redcat T-shirt. And so we just got to be a little bit careful how that mix happens, because you don't want somebody to maybe lose some respect for you just basically on the fact you don't have a collar on, right? So there's just little things. And and I've noticed even in language, the language that's used, and what I mean by that is mostly words that I probably can't say on a podcast.
You can say that to this podcast.
Well,
I've got a little button I click, but it's entirely up to you. Reputation is key, I'm sure.
But anyway, you would know from Google and all other places and YouTube that, the F word and other miscellaneous words are very common in Australia, especially in hospitality. And I've found that here that,
I would agree, actually.
I've surprised myself a little bit. A couple of times I've dropped the wrong words, probably in the wrong situations. And there's always a little bit of silence and people looking around. That's okay.
I think I
just
agree.
An adjustment, right?
And I find myself coming out of operations where that word is common, and lots of others like that. And I find when I've been going to, into tech boardrooms or wherever I am meeting people, that I do switch a little bit. I do have to switch on a little bit. But so you're right,
So a little
I think I need to work in Australia. I think I'll feel at home there.
Yes. But other than that, other challenges, I think really for us, it's mostly about getting known and it's actually about, it's interesting for us. It's about demonstrating depth, right? It's actually about saying, we're not the guys that with just a cool new idea. We've actually got a great idea that's tried and tested. And come and talk to us and let's work through it. So there's that bit of recognition, but also just understanding of our heritage almost, if you like, because there's nothing wrong with having a cool new idea. That's fantastic. Yeah. But as you said, out of the fire that was COVID, right? The companies that have risen out of it with some great ideas, a lot of them are really young, right? Yeah. And you look at that and the challenge for an operator is that that's high risk now, right? Yeah. It's cool and looks good, but often there's not a lot of substance. Like there's,
I think that
was
the
road to ruin, right?
I think that was the realization that actually you could go they marketed really well. I think that was the
Absolutely.
big. I think that was the key differentiator, that they were marketing really well, and you could have what you would call legacy providers who'd been around for a while who wouldn't behave like that because. No. Why would you? Because that's not what we do. But then these guys come with I remember going to a trade show and they're all dancing around the stand and all this kind of thing. And I was thinking, wow, this is different. But I think most of the people have gone there have moved along.
Got to have substance. And it doesn't mean, so for example, if you looked at us and said we've been around a long time, but, we've dramatically changed. Things like we actually have people employed who do a lot of UX, for example. So if you go back 5 years or so, you look at a tech company like ours, most of our solutions would be focused on operators. So your employees are going to use it. So if I'm building a screen for an employee, I want it to be simple, efficient, right? I can assemble an order really quickly. I might have to learn how to do it, but I can do it really quick. If I'm doing a kiosk, I can't have an ugly kiosk that's efficient if you learn how to use it. That's not how it works, right? That's the opposite of what I want.
So that's not a queue buster, that's a queue former.
And one of the challenges we have in our industry, right, is that part of our transformation is that, because if you haven't properly moved on to this consumer-facing side, because now we're doing apps, so we have app developers, we're doing kiosks, we're doing loyalty portals where consumers are logging in. You're doing a lot of consumer-facing stuff.
Yeah.
And if you haven't changed your business to match that, you're going to be well behind.
Yeah, because these guys have grown up with, a lot of them after the iPhone was made, right? So they've grown up with, they're used to everything being,
And I think a lot of these new tech companies that came in after COVID, they actually were really good at that stuff. Like they went, we can make some really cool looking stuff.
Yeah.
So they were really amazing on the front end, right? But there was often not a lot happening on the back end. Yeah. So anyway, we like to think we're bringing both of those together.
On all these solutions where you've got people logging in from all different angles and you've got the customer journey touch points, you're gathering a lot of data now. And we talk about data a lot on the podcast, but I find it riveting. And how are you guys presenting that back, I suppose, or empowering your customers to kind of make the most out of it?
Well, so one of the things that we're very big on is the fact that we generate ridiculous amounts of data, right? So we generate basically on 3 levels. So you get tons of sales data, as you'd expect, and the sales data is pretty deep because you're now bringing in, with our integrations, you're bringing these direct integrations with the Ubers of the world.
Yeah.
You're bringing in all your delivery stuff right into the same database. So you've got every sale you've made in every direction down to crazy levels of detail. You've got, through the loyalty component, you've got all your marketing data that's in there now. So now I know who's buying and where they are and all those, how they're buying, right? And then you got operational data, because we're controlling the kitchen and kiosks and all these other places. You know stuff that's happening about how long things have taken. So the best example I can give you how that's used is a customer in Australia called Grilled. So these guys have about 160 very large footprinted burger shops, because burgers are the new thing, right? So they've been around a long time, right, actually. But so they do big burger shops. And what these guys do, as an example, is you can have an order come in from Uber. That order might come in at, I don't know, let's say 12 o'clock.
Yep.
And they'll actually ask our system. So this is a bit of an end-to-end, right? Uber will ask our system, so hey, what's the make time looking like in this shop? We might go back and say it's 20 minutes. So they say, okay, well, 12:20, well, we can get you a driver by 12:40. So we said, fantastic. So we'll accept the order. Order comes on board. We hold that order until 20 minutes before, because that's our make time. So we hold it quietly, and then we drop it into the kitchen at the appropriate time. Comes into the kitchen. Now that's going to get time stamped as it goes through all the bump screens, right? And you'll be able to see that order go through and be created and made. Then it'll actually go out to under the heat lamps and be ready to go. And you'll know that went out at, let's say it went at 12:39, so 1 minute before it was time to serve it, or to be picked up, sorry. That'll come up on a screen. There'll be a special bag tag that's printed and stuck onto the bag, and that bag tag has a QR code on it. So when the bag gets picked up, it gets scanned off, and that knocks it off the screen. The screen is telling the drivers, hey, this order's ready. And it can either do it up on a screen or do a QR code that the driver can see out in the parking lot, right? So that's quite cool. But they'll actually know, yep, it's been knocked off at 12:39. And as part of that process, by the way, if that driver, let's say they don't show up to pick it up till 12:55, right? So again, it'll get scanned off at 12:55, so we know that. A cool little bit is in the middle of that, we can automatically tell the Grilled guys, hey, you need to remake this meal because it's been sitting here too long. So that'll automatically get it fixed, which is pretty cool. And then the nice bit of all that data I just explained, in this case, Grilled would then go to back to Uber and say, we need to have a conversation because you told us 12:40, and the guy showed up at 12:55, and I had to remake the meal. But they've got every data point from
so they can pass
start to finish, back. And they can have that discussion, whatever that would be, right? But what's nice is incredibly complex level of data, and it's all about the two systems, ours and Uber's in this case, talking to each other and actually passing data back and forth all the way through and timestamping all those bits. That's why I said there's integrations and there's integrations, right?
Yeah, because I think that's what it is, right? It's the devil's in the detail, as they always say.
Yeah.
That actually, if you can have an integration that's producing data that's actually, I suppose, leading you down path, because there's no point just to, we called it data waterboarding the other day. There's no point just having so much data. I know, sorry. It's better than slavery.
It might be a bit early. I don't think you can call it data waterboarding.
But yeah, there's so much data coming in that actually, when does it become useful and what can we do with it? And I think that's a really good example.
Well, so the next thing, I guess, part of all of that is a big part of our system is to actually expose all that data to your BI tools. So there's lots of reporting in Redcat. Yep, you can report like crazy and see what's going on. But what I think is more powerful, especially for any of the larger operators, is we are very proud that we power BI. So we actually say, here's all that data that we just talked about. Yeah. It's all available on a SQL server, and it's exposed to you so that you can pull it all out and combine it with other data. Yep. So people combine it with budgeting information, rostering, finance, whatever they have, right? Whatever that makes sense, the weather even. Compile it all and actually then can have very actionable reports and alerts and all those sorts of great things in apps. But it's all coming out of that rich data set.
We've talked through a lot about product and what you guys are doing, and some great examples. Actually, the Grilled example is fantastic. And really, I suppose tech. We've talked about the past. There's a legacy involved with you guys. But what does the future look like? Because obviously, as you say, you keep iterating, you keep modernizing, you keep looking, and you've grown from 30 to 80 people, was it?
Yeah,
and Sue,
already about 85.
Sue's still there. Let's say 29 to 80. And what does the future look like for you guys? I suppose now you're in the UK and you're starting to develop a footprint.
Yep. So we've got an office down in Southampton. We've brought some Aussies here for. So we actually moved some guys across on 6-month secondments. And that'll be our approach going forward. And
are they enjoying it?
Mostly.
The weather? No. Actually, the weather's been good.
Well, it's so interesting weather because it's all perspective is all I'll say. So I'm here in the summer. The great part is it's a bit chilly in Australia in the winter, right?
Yes, that's
our
right.
winter, right?
Yeah,
so the good thing for me is I get summer,
You're getting both,
right? But definition of summer is an interesting one. So, because, summer here is, last few days has been, 22 degrees. I'm wearing a jacket. A lot of the locals are wearing shorts and t-shirts. So I will say, so it's all perspective.
Yeah, you want to go to Newcastle? They're a different breed. They wear shorts and t-shirts in the winter.
True, it's all perspective, but it has been good. So I guess success for us. So one is to establish the office and grow it, which is great. We have a real focus on the UK, right? So we're trying very hard to avoid being dragged out into Europe, right, from here until it's time. So the thing is to establish here and build some momentum and build some expertise and have our guys here, so that we have a full-on office. And I think that's great. So we have our supporter based here, right? So we actually do 24/7 support using each country in the opposite direction, which is cool because I got to say, already the Aussies are loving it because instead of getting a sleepy Australian at night, they get a bright-eyed Brit who's just had their coffee, right? So it's actually worked really well.
They're happy. Yeah.
And it works both ways. So that's nice. And then we've got implementations people here. So you've got people who are, local. They'll come out and actually talk to you physically, which is, crazy. And so we're actually going really well here and building that. And once that is more established, right? So over who knows how long that period of time is. Let's say in the next year or two. Yeah. I think our next thing will be to expand out into the Middle East and into Europe, right? From here, using this as a.
Is that you? Are you the man?
I hope not. My job so far has been making this happen. Although we do have a country
You're going to do a good
manager.
job, and then what's going to happen?
Yeah, I know. The next thing I'm sure they're going to say, you did that really well. Yeah. Got another idea for you.
It's called the Middle East.
Yeah, and after that, we'll probably also find that we're expanding more into Asia Pacific. Yeah. Because that is a kind of our home ground. You don't realize it when you live in Australia, but but Asia is actually quite close to us. Yeah. So it is the next launch, and we don't really. You don't realize how close it is and the influence of Asian culture in Australia compared to here, which is, I would say, is probably a bit more Middle Eastern in terms of the major influences. So it is our backyard. So we'll probably expand up into Asia a bit more.
Okay. And we've been building up to this bit for 45 minutes.
Ask the question.
What are you enjoying about the UK?
Well, I didn't want to mention it, but this weekend...
Yes, you did. It's the first thing you said when you walked in.
This weekend I did go to the Ashes. And
you went, did you?
I did go on the Saturday. So I saw... and, over time, this will date a little bit if people are listening to this well into the future. You'll have to Google it.
No, I think this one will be on there for a while.
But I was on day 4. So day 4 of the Ashes, which we were pretty soundly kicking your ass, really. But it was... there was a catch that was ruled not a catch, which I think it is always intriguing, by the way, to see locally. So I had a bit, first I have to tell you, I had a bit of confusion. I'm walking around on days 1, 2, and 3, right, around London. And there was all these conversations in the background, which were confusing me like you would not believe. And it was people going, like 3 for 300, that's not very good. And I'm thinking, that sounds okay, actually. And then I realized, okay, hold on. A, they're barracking for the wrong team. Yeah. And B, they're actually saying the scores backwards, which was very confusing for me. I said 3 for 300, didn't I?
Yeah.
So 300 for 3. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but 300 for 3. So 300 for 3 is the right way.
Yeah. No? Well, not for me.
Really?
Yeah. Australia apparently is the only place that says the cricket score the opposite way. We would say 3 for 300.
Okay, that's weird. Why would you do that?
I don't know why. I'm not.
To be fair, I didn't want to talk about the score, so
it's just weird, right? It's one of those things that I find very confusing. Anyway, and then during the game, like when things were happening that were controversial, what's really cool is seeing the controversy and being embroiled in it, and then seeing it on the Australian side, and it's like so opposite. It's fantastic. So I really enjoyed the controversy, right? So there was the catch. There was the catch that wasn't a catch, right? So beautiful catch, came down,
rolled it.
I don't think he did really, but anyway, beyond that, there's an argument he didn't control the ball. But I will say, in the defense of the Brits, you are taught when you play cricket to never let the ball touch the ground, right? So he should have probably rolled onto his side or his back. I will give you that.
Thank you.
As long as you will flip it around and understand that you were taught when you play cricket to never leave your crease while the ball's in play.
Well, look, I rarely listen to Rishi Sunak about anything. But Rishi said, It's not cricket.
I am a member of the MCC in Melbourne, right? And I was stunned by the images of the guys like just berating
The upset old man.
Yeah, and apparently 3 of them have been suspended.
Yeah, they have.
I don't know what'll happen there, but
They're on their way here now to meet you. I've arranged a meet and greet.
we'll have to get it on video because surely I can get them suspended for longer. But anyways, but that was a little bit crazy. There was a lot of passion.
Oh, you enjoyed it?
I really, really had a lot of fun.
Actually, it's a great time to be. You got the Ashes. I love Wimbledon. Tennis has just started.
Yeah. But it is nice to see Wimbledon. Honestly, so it reminds me of Melbourne, though, right? Because we play the Ashes at the MCG.
Yeah.
And we have the Australian Open tennis.
That's right.
Literally around the corner, like right next door to the MCG.
Oh, is it really? Is it next door?
They're right in the same precinct. And our office happens to be within walking distance of both of those, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a very hard life in Melbourne.
It is. We struggle.
Your sunny place, and I think there've been some brilliant examples in the pod, and we will share them. And how do people get hold of you, Lawrence, if they want to? Obviously, you're here. How long are you visiting us for? 3 weeks?
I come over in 3-week stints, just to
3-week stints.
Yes,
that's what my wife says I come home for.
But we have a country manager. We have a full operation. Lots of people.
Yeah. So where do we reach out to if we people
check out our website? So you can find it at www.redcat.technology.
And the red and the cat together.
It's one word. It is one word.
Any story behind that?
Gato Rojo.
Yep.
Spanish for red cat.
All right.
And that my Mexican business partner saw a movie, which I've seen, and I didn't think it was a great movie. But beyond that, he saw this movie, and in it had this, when he was younger, and he saw it had this pub, which like a club, really.
Right.
And he loved this club and the dance scenes and everything about it. And it was called Gato Rojo. So.
Wow.
There you go.
See, I should always ask that because there's always a decent story behind it.
Yes.
That's great. Look, and you can find these guys in the marketplace as well. The guys will be on the Tech on Toast marketplace. Lawrence, brilliant. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out because obviously you're out on a visit and you're visiting customers and running around the streets here and hopefully having good experience with our tech so far. Ish,
mostly.
I'm sure Redcat there would be much better. But yeah, great to see you and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.